Hey there, this is Dr. Priya Bains, founder of Virtual Freedom Coaching. So today we're going to talk about avoiding mistakes in your business. And I know you're here because that's what you want to do. And it's not about avoiding a very specific mistake like of mistakes in Facebook ads or in your marketing or, those types of mistakes. This is about a really general technique to avoid any mistake in your business. It's also a way to brainstorm and help you take your business to another level by planning ahead, either individually or with a team. So, what I'm going to talk to you about today is how a little simple technique you can apply when you're working alone, and I'll describe that technique to you. I'll give you an example of that technique, and then I'll help you apply that same technique when you're working with your team. So you'll know how to do it alone. You'll get an example, and then I'll help you give you an approach to apply that same technique when you're working with your team. So I'm giving you a ton of content, so do pay attention. You're probably going to want to bring out a pen, take some notes. It's going to be short. It's definitely going to be under 10 minutes. So I might try and keep it under 5. So you're going to want to take some notes and apply it. Although it's really, really simple. So once you know it, you will be able to memorize it and you won't have to refer to your notes again. So it's just something you'll need in the beginning to apply it. So the steps to the technique when you're doing it alone, it's pretty straightforward how you can avoid mistakes in your business. But the first thing is to choose a goal or an outcome. So I'm just going to use the goal of creating a video. It's really common in online businesses to use videos for purposes of marketing, sharing information. So I think video is a pretty universal thing. I'm doing one here, so I'll use that example. But the technique's really, really simple. So it's choose a goal or an outcome, and then come up with 10 things that might go wrong. So this is a really unique opportunity to access those fears. So people often will say things like, I'm nervous about creating a video or talking in front of an audience, or there's these fears that come up when you're going to put yourself in front of many people. So you accessing those fears, are you afraid you're going to, forget your lines, or your presentation won't be great, or your slides won't be great? Really think about those fears. There's a very specific reason if you dig into it for those fears. And if you can access that specific reason, you're able to address it. So why I say come up with 10 things that might go wrong, there's probably 2 or 3 that are really obvious to you. And then if you plan ahead and you stretch yourself, you're going to come up with other things that are going to help you create a better outcome up front versus having to go back and look and decide, I didn't like that, let's do it all over again, kind of a thing. So come up with at least 10 things that might go wrong. And then for each of those 10 things, you simply create a backup plan. So a common example of this backup plan is when you're driving, right? It's pretty easy. You want to get from point A to B and you want to do it safely. However, things happen when you're driving, things like black ice, people running red lights, cutting you off, all those types of things happen when you're driving. So the makers of cars, the manufacturers, have put in a number of backup plans, right? So things like seat belts, emergency braking systems, alarms or airbags or crumple zones, those are all sort of the emergency backup plans. And so that's the same thing that you're doing here. You want the simple, easy route to your destination, but things can go wrong. So you plan ahead with things that can protect you if those things should go wrong. So simply all you do is you write that 10 things that might go wrong. You create a backup plan for each of those 10 things that could go wrong. And then if anything should go wrong, your backup plan's ready, or you've already addressed it in advance, so those things won't even go wrong in the first place. And you don't have to actually address these things that might go wrong in fight or flight. So when your blood pressure is up and you're feeling nervous, you won't have to come up with a plan of action because you've already written it at a time when you were calm and relaxed and you had access to, your full brain versus that little part that you have access to when you're in flight or flight. So it's really about having that information available for you. And should something go wrong, you just pull it out, you read it, and you follow the instructions, which makes life so much easier and helps you avoid unintentional mistakes in business. So what does this list look like? So it's really straightforward and simple. Just pull out a piece of paper. You can pull up a Word document, whatever works for you. And on the left side of the page, write 10 things that could go wrong. On the right side, 10 ways to avoid things that could go wrong, right? Pretty straightforward. And just with the video example, things that come up really commonly that people talk about, I'll forget what to say. So one way to avoid that might be to practice a lot. Recording your video so that you only have to get it right once. Maybe you record 15 videos and you choose the best one, or giving yourself a script that can help you address forgetting your lines. Or you might be concerned that the lighting won't be right. You might forget your lines and, oh, sorry, not forget your lines, but you might be concerned that the lighting won't be right and things will be dark and that kind of a thing. So you prepare ahead, right? You start recording when you have plenty of sunshine throughout the day instead of recording at, right before sunset as the light goes down. If you don't get it right the first time, you've lost your light. So you plan far ahead, make sure you have enough lighting, or you can collect all the lights around your home, or you can purchase a professional lighting kit. If that's a concern, you can address it in advance. Other concerns that come up: how will you appear on camera? So if you're concerned about your wardrobe, your hair, or makeup, you can talk to a friend who's great with fashion. Everyone has a friend who's more fashionable than the rest of us. So you can invite that friend to help you out. You can get a stylist. You can get a haircut. Do little things that make you feel good if you're going to have your face on video. The other option is doing what I'm doing here, and you can have a screen or you can use slides. And then if you're not so comfortable with having your face on video, I just record these fairly often and don't always want to get my hair and makeup done. I feel it's a little bit time consuming for professional videos. So, I just will put up one of these slides so then I don't have to prepare everything. And that's something you can do as well. And like another example might be, you might be afraid of boring your audience. So, you can test things with a friend, see if, they can stay awake, write a script, read it yourself, see if you can pay attention. If you lose focus, your audience will probably lose focus. So those types of things you can prepare. And, I'm not going to go all the way to 10 because I will probably bore you to death, but this kind of gives you a sense of the process and the type of thinking. And you'll notice that with the 10 ways to avoid things that go wrong, I have more than one example. I give myself multiple options for the things that could go wrong. And then I simply have to choose what feels good to me at the time. So you'll notice that it's one thing that could go wrong more than a few ways to address that one thing that could go wrong, and make a list of 10. So that's simply what you do to help you avoid mistakes in your business when working alone. So it's choose a goal or outcome, come up with at least 10 things that might go wrong, create a backup plan for each of those 10 things. And if something goes wrong, or even before something goes wrong, you apply them. That's it. Super simple, what you can do working individually by yourself. Now, if you're working with a team, there's a number of more people involved, there's more moving parts. So you want to make sure your team is aligned when a situation might come up. Sorry, just gonna have a little bit of water here. Okay, sorry, I make lots of noise when I drink. So if you're working with a team, decide on the project or outcome you're working on again. So same thing, video example. And then what you want to do is, once you've decided on the project or outcome and you're clear on that, then you want to bring your team into play right away, because they're probably going to identify parts of the project that you haven't thought about. They're going to identify it from their perspective. So your web designer might think about, how are you going to load this to your website, or how are you going to market the video? And your virtual assistant might think about, or your marketing assistant might think about, how are you going to market the video and share it with others? What information is needed? When is it needed by? So bringing your team in up front to see the different sides of the project and creating a little bit of a mini, or if it's a big project, if you're launching a program for 200 people, then it's a big project. But bringing in your team members to get the different perspectives and understand what's involved in the project from everybody's perspective. And then simply, once you have that information laid out, then you plan what needs to be done. So the steps of the project, what needs to be done by what time, and then who needs to do what, and then in what order do those actions need to take place. So there's a workflow. So when you're working on a project, you might have some ideas that you generate, you pass them on to your copywriter writes the script, you review it, then you start coming up with a marketing plan. This is just a vague, simple example, but I would go into more detail if we're working together. But you get the idea. It's really about knowing what happens at each step of the process until your project is complete and getting input from your team. And then again, so you do that, and then again, you follow that step about that process that you used working individually in terms of writing 10 things that could go wrong, and then addressing how you could manage them as a team and who does what. So the roles and the way the situation should be addressed should be aligned. So it's simple in the sense that we all know that when you have a fire, you call the fire department. We don't call the police, we don't call ambulance. We might call ambulance, but the fire department handles the fire. And that's the level of clarity that we want on our team, so that if something should occur, your team's able to gather their resources and address it fairly quickly. And they're involved in the process. So the steps again: choose a goal, come up with at least 10 things that might go wrong, create a backup plan, and then apply that backup plan if you're working individually. So those are the steps for the individual. And then if you're working with a team, again, decide on the project or outcome, identify the different parts of the project with your team, because they will have different perspectives on your project, and they'll help you generate more ideas and be more thorough. And then third, plan what needs to be done, who needs to do what, and in what order the information needs to flow through your team so that you meet your timelines. And then finally, go back and create do that process that you did with yourself and identify 10 things that could go wrong and 10 ways to address them. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully it provided some value. And if it did, please do share this with others who could benefit. Comment below if you have questions, hit like, and let me know what your thoughts are. So we'll talk to you again soon. This is Dr. Priya Bains of Virtual Freedom Coaching. Bye-bye.